critical issue affecting first homeowners. We know many of them can afford to pay off a loan. It's just
with the low interest rates.
That's right. So the issue has really been what is the best policy mechanism to assist those who are finding it hard to get into the market. And we've viewed that these first homeowner grants are the way to go. They're a targeted approach. We know it's worked in many state jurisdictions, so it's great now that we're considering a federal policy as well.
Scott Morrison was asked about the modelling. He said, look, nothing definitive really. Presumably it would have some upwards pressure. If you're talking about 10,000 people a year that couldn't get into the market unless they took on mortgage insurance, which a lot of people balk at, you'd expect some upward pressure. Is that the logical conclusion?
Look, it depends, I think, in the markets. We've got to also recognise that at the moment we're seeing nearly a 30% decrease in the building industry at the moment in terms of residential building sales. And so we need to ensure that we can actually provide stimulus to that. So it's hard at the moment to determine. I think a macro figure is very difficult to work out, but we know, I think, from the state experiences that by and large the positives outweigh the negatives, and it assists those who can't otherwise get into the market. And we're looking at a small group, so the question is how big would the impact be on the overall housing sector? It is unknown, and obviously more work needs to be done.
Yeah.
But the focus is very much on those targeted approaches that we think has worked in the past and should work in the future. So
when you say more work needs to be done, so is that to properly understand the policy? It's obviously come very late in the campaign.
The policy generally is very much in the right direction. The question now is making sure that you've got all the detail worked out, that we're ensuring that it actually is getting to the right people. But as I said, we've known in the past that this has worked well with state approaches, the New Zealand approach, so it is a step in the right direction, but we know that more needs to be done. Master Builders Australia has been calling constantly for resolving some of the excessive land costs, for example. The state governments and local governments still need to address the issue around shortage of land supply, high developer charges, and also restrictive planning practices. So the issue of housing affordability in its broadest sense is got to be looked at in a holistic way, and that's why we also congratulate the government in looking at a proper assessment of the housing market and what we need is really important in making sure we're taking a proper long-term approach to the residential needs of Australia.
The land aspect's a bit of a constant push-pull from the states and federal governments, generally speaking. Is this going to be resolved in any way, or is it ever thus?
We would like to think that all levels of government could come together and work some of these issues around land supply.
Is that needed in some way? What, like a big COAG that really digs down into these issues, put everything on the table?
Absolutely, and it's what the Henry Tax Review actually recommended. They said don't look at housing taxes until you have resolved some of the key land supply issues. So we think it's really important to whoever wins on Saturday that they continue to focus on the issue of land supply and the exorbitant costs that have been hit in terms of land costs over the last decade. It has to be addressed.
The big policy, of course, in this election, the last one, is Labor's negative gearing policy. You had modelling without the grandfathering factored in. Is there any update on that?
Our modelling stands as is. We didn't need to factor in grandfathering because we're looking at future investment. We've asked our economists about grandfathering. They said whether you put grandfathering in or not, the results are exactly the same because what we were modelling is what would occur to future investment in new homes. So the figures remain, as our economists said, less new homes and less new jobs under the ALP model.
Because if you look at the policy as is, what